Good afternoon and welcome to IAB There, our weekly live stream in which we connect the digital advertising ecosystem. I'm Angelina Eng, VP of the Measurement, Addressability, and Data Center here at IAB. And in today's session titled The New Addressability Landscape, we'll be discussing important industry topics, including data connectivity solutions and the future of measurement and addressability. Now, with that said, today we're excited to welcome to the show Alex Terrio, GM of Spherical. Welcome, Alex. How are you today?
Thanks so much for having me.
Great. So you are the GM of Spherical. You work alongside brands, helping them to maximize the value of their first-party data to enable persona development, enrichment, analysis, and advertising and activation. Did I miss anything?
We do a lot, but yeah, no, I think you covered the basics.
All right, great. So let's get into this. Welcome to the show. We'll talk about the IAB state of data, right? Preparing for the new addressability landscape, which we had released at ALM. And I know that it aligns very closely with your interests and strengths at Lotami and what you do. So my first question for you is, like, with the signal loss from third-party identifiers that continue to plague marketers and publishers, how would you advise them to approach future-proofing their data strategies around acquisition and retention?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of brands who are navigating the decisions around how to capture their data, how to maximize their data. I know a lot of brands are looking and evaluating things like customer data platforms. This is really an area that we've leaned into, and we've partnered with a number of CDPs because I think CDPs are really powerful at harnessing first-party data on behalf of brands. Their strong suit, however, is really in the retention category and less so in the acquisition category. So that's something that we want to make sure that brands don't lose sight of. And so things like not just maximizing your first-party data, but also understanding what % of your first-party data is known versus unknown, because there's a lot of new solutions, and I'm sure we'll chat about those today, that only address the known user, so your existing customer or authenticated IDs. So really understanding, what about all the unknown? So if you're a brand and only 10% of the traffic that comes to your site is either logging in or making a purchase, making sure that you have a plan for the remaining 90%, which is still valuable first-party data for you. So thinking about technology partners that have a plan that future-proofs both the known and the unknown, or technology partners that are interoperable with or connected with those systems that can do that. Thinking about other data sources. I think there's a common misconception that third-party cookies going away means third-party data is going away. So whether it's second party or third party, we know that the need for enrichment is alive and well. And so just making sure that you're kind of thinking end to end about what those partners are, who's developing solutions that are future-proofed, that are privacy compliant, and also who, as a brand, who are the publishers that have similar technology that speaks the same language. So developing things like preferred publisher networks that your majority of your focus is dedicated towards.
So let's dive into the known audience first, and then we'll talk about the unknown.
Yeah.
So with the known audiences, right? A brand has a list of, maybe 1 million, 2 million, maybe even more. What do you do with that list? So what should they be doing with that list before it gets sent to you guys?
Yeah, I think, again, that data could live in a data warehouse. It could live in a CDP, really making sure that there is analysis of what that known customer looks like. So who's making those purchases, when and why, and trying to come up with some sense of that. And then understanding what you don't know about that customer. And I think that's where filling the gaps with additional partners that can do that. So whether it's just pairing it with external data sources, second and third party data, things like real-time audience insights. So somebody might be making a purchase for something like hiking shoes. And so that's great. You can cross-sell, upsell them based on that information that you have sitting in your CRM. But what else do you not know about them? Are they also business travelers? Are they also a parent of young children? Are they in market to buy a larger vehicle because they do a lot of road trips? They no longer do a lot of plane trips. So there's so much other discovery that is important to shaping things for brands in regards to their creative and even just future product development.
Now, do you typically recommend that the brands create audience segments and enrich that? And you mentioned enriching their data with second party, third party data. But do you recommend that they create audience segments first, or can they do that in collaboration with you?
Yeah, so absolutely. A lot of the customers that we work with do primarily utilize our system to do that segmentation. So being able to understand and segment their own first party data from a recency, from a frequency perspective, creating taxonomies that both represent maybe their own offering, but also trying to map to some of the new cohort solutions that are out there and make sense of how to have that connective tissue. So yeah, we offer both kind of just one-to-one segmentation and targeting, as well as some of expanding upon connecting to different device identifiers, connecting to different data sources.
And I would assume that given the breadth of your network of publishers that you guys have, you have a lot of behavioral and contextual signals that you can leverage to help them. Because like, especially with brands when they're purchasing data, let's say externally, or enriching their data outside of your platform, there's always questions on the reliability and the stuff, and how recent that those data points are. But I assume that with the plethora of information that you guys are getting from your publisher network, as well as the data that you're observing, or your systems or your algorithms are observing, that's more of like in the moment, at a bit more accurate, or maybe not accurate is the right word, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think so. Lodome's data exchange is one of the largest global data marketplaces, and the breadth and depth of that kind of spans everything from demographic to purchase intent,
Right.
to just like lifestyle and personas. The sourcing of that can really vary from things like recent content consumption. We've also got really great like panel-based data. I think that's
Okay.
something that's growing. And then a lot of declared information from offline, very rich data sources.
I don't think a lot of people really probably fully understand that, right? Because they're always looking to do that data outside. That's great. Now, can you take that first party data, then create lookalike models and so forth, or is that where the unknown audience kind of strategy comes into play?
Yeah, it's funny you asked. I feel like I'm hearing more and more about like first party modeled segments, and this is something that we've been doing since our inception. And so yes, a lot of customers are scaling their first party data because that first party data is really valuable. But it doesn't scale, especially when you're talking about maybe a brand who is refining their total customer footprint down to just people who purchase a specific product or a product category. But also going back to your initial question about retention versus acquisition, if you're looking to acquire new customers, you need to find new eyeballs. So it's such a great solution to finding those people that you don't already have engagement or a touch point, or especially kind of declared information on.
And from the retention side, are there strategies that you're seeing that really work in terms of like reach and frequency, and how does creative play into this? Any recommendations that you have in terms of best practices with a retention program, leveraging first known audience data?
Yeah, I can answer, I guess, both on the buy side and the sell side. So for brands, I think leveraging their existing information for both on-site personalization. So if I'm buying, let's see, I'm going to Mexico in a few weeks. So let's say I've made some purchases for swimwear for Mexico. The next time I come back to that site, if I'm, want to see what's the latest and greatest in the past 30 days, make recommendations that are similar to a similar purchase I've made. So maybe I want sandals to go with it, or maybe I want, like a cover up to go with it. Especially if you're talking about a retailer that runs the gamut of maybe like men's, women's, kids, and all, jackets and boots and stuff. So I'm definitely more likely to make another purchase if you recognize what I've made in the past and you're recommending something that's complementary. From the sell side, publishers, media owners, I think they're doing a really great job starting to dig deeper into their subscriber base, whether it's putting up more paywalls and reg walls to offer a better value exchange for their more loyal customers. That said, I think it's early days. I think there's still a lot of kind of bifurcation internally between the subscription team and the revenue advertising teams. So I hope to see the convergence of those two over the course of the next year, because they often have, we talk about CDPs and data acceleration platforms and activation platforms like Lotame, and they don't always speak together, and that's a missed opportunity. And that's a huge investment we're making in working with our existing customers to make sure that we're integrated with their CDP in a better together future.
Now, are you seeing, so you said reg walls and subscription base, but are you seeing an increase from the publisher side to request to, buy a subscription, or is it more registration? Or the third, I think, is just prompting questions and interests of what people like and don't like, and opting into answering a question or two. So which ones of those methods are you seeing the most of, and which ones do you think have a better opportunity that brands can leverage better?
I think it's all about the value exchange, and no two publishers are the same, I would say.
Okay.
What I have seen is a lot of them they're in a test and learn phase, almost like how far can I push the consumer to force them to authenticate in? And then I think we're already starting to see them pull back. So they figured out where that wall is that they're running up against, where they're starting to risk losing consumers who aren't willing to authenticate in. But I think it's been more basic tactics, as we mentioned, like reg walls, paywalls, some sort of form completion. I think there's an opportunity to get a lot more creative with what that value exchange looks like. And a good example I think about often, and it's really not publishers so much, but more in the grocery kind of retail space. When I think about things like retail media and my relationship to my local grocery store, they've offered a tremendous value exchange for me, because now I don't go shop in the store, and I don't even walk in the store anymore. They shop for me and they bring it out to my car, and I will happily authenticate in on my web browser and my phone once a week. So I am a very loyal customer.
Yep.
And I no longer have to go shopping. So I think it's all about like the creative ways to offer that fair value exchange to the end user.
Yeah, I know that. So in our report, in the state of data report, in the first report, in the report that we had in the summer around first party data and addressability, one of the key findings that we saw was that there was an emphasis, or companies were trying to grow their first party database, but there was still a discrepancy, or still a big gap in terms of match rates between buy side and sell side, given the fact that we've got the privacy regulations happening. Like, I think on the publisher side, we stated that it looked like it was anywhere between 20 to 40% of their audiences that visit the publisher site are signed in or are known audiences, which now leads me into our next question around unknown audiences, right? And you touched a little bit about how companies can approach unknown audiences. So, like I said, there's been an enormous focus around first party data collection. But as you and I know, that not everyone has access or the means to make most of that customer data. So, how is Lotame approaching the democratization of customer data and deriving value from it?
Yeah, at the core of it, it really, for Lotame at least, it goes to our identity graph. So we have Lotame Panorama is our own proprietary graph that we offer. It's a global graph. It's hugely important to powering our services and solutions. So we offer both a platform for first-party data management and access to enrichment and analytics. And we offer, again, one of the largest global data marketplaces. So that's data sitting on the shelf in DSPs and whatnot. None of that is going to be possible without a future-proofed spine to power it. And that is our Panorama ID. So we've put a lot of work in the last 3+ years into growing adoption of that and evangelizing and educating. And I think today we are the second largest cookieless universal ID out there. And proud to say second, because I think we're actually the largest that has enrichment. So meaning that our data spine, our data marketplace is also linked to our identity. So it allows for access to this data, whether you own it and it's known, or if you have first party unknown data and need it to be linked to external data sources like second and third party providers. All of this is made possible with universal IDs. We're not the only one. There's UID2, there's RAMP ID, ID5, there's so many of them. And we believe in interoperating. We believe in a future that is open and free web, making it easier for both the brands and publishers to be able to kind of not only continue doing what they're doing today, but actually improve upon what they're doing today. And we're seeing this in some of the testing that we've already done.
Now, I use the term democratization of data, but we both have in this call. Can you just, for those that aren't familiar with that term, what does democratizing data mean to you?
I think that there is there's an over focus on what first party data, the power of first party data and what it can mean and what it can do. And there's also limits to it that need to be made aware before we enter the future where third party cookies go away and a lot of the kind of legacy systems that we have are no longer functioning. So I think it's an uphill battle that we all have to kind of modernize our systems and think about all the different means to move from what is legacy today.
Great. Last question. Oh, actually, we have quite a few more questions, and we went through a lot. So we also talked about this, but media loves to announce the death of technologies and approaches. But we've seen third-party data enrichment, personalized targeting, and even the DMP are far from a death sentence, right? In our own research, we saw marketers leaning towards data enrichment examples. How do you explain the phenomenon, and where do you stand on these blanket announcements?
Personally, where do I stand? I think it's exhausting. There's
you and me both. Oh my God. So guess what? That's why we have jobs, right? Because we get to answer these questions.
It is so true. My team is within Lotame is really focused on kind of identifying growth opportunities and keeping up with the latest and greatest. And I have a hard time keeping up. So I really feel for CMOs of brands who have 10 other day jobs, not just what's happening in ad tech. So that's kind of where I feel there. Positioning things as the death of certain technologies or functionality. I think it's a great way to drive, consumption of articles in media outlets. But I think that there's been a lot of change. There are things that we'll part ways with. Third-party cookies will eventually go away. There will be a death of that. But I don't think that some of kind of the basic functionality that's out there is necessarily dead. I think it has an opportunity to evolve and actually improve. So I think a great example of this is what's happening in the identity space. We know that the use of third-party cookies as a means to connect data across devices and domains it suffices, but again, it can be improved upon. So yes, I get there's so many instances. I've been at Lotame for 15 years, and I recently was looking in my archives, and some of the presentations that I helped prepare in 2008 spoke to industry needs and challenges that are consistent with where we are today. So I don't think much has truly died. It's just there's sometimes what's old is new again.
Yeah, and I would say that even, with the death of third-party cookies, right, and loss of identifiers, that this is where machine learning and AI are going to be so powerful. I mean, we're already seeing in the news some of the things that AI, generative AI can do. I think I read somewhere that a lot of companies are looking at incorporating chat GPT like functionalities. We'll see where that goes in terms of being able to process a lot of data and creating queries and code without having to actually know how to do it. So it'll be interesting how in this space, companies like yours and others are going to provide insights into audience segments, as well as how it's going to attribute, if it's accurately attribute any ROI or activity. But shifting gears, you were a major supporter of IAB's annual leadership meeting, which took place this past January, as I mentioned earlier. What were some of the outcomes and insights that you came away with? And do you have any predictions for what's next?
Yeah, there was, the event was great. Thank you again for welcoming us to come and sponsor. We had such a blast, and I'm
So
missing,
much fun, wasn't it?
I am missing some of the drinks at the tiki bar that first night. It was wonderful weather, so we'll have to do that again next year. You know what, something that's top of mind, and it was definitely covered at IAB, was retail media networks and how they're taking off. The space it's hot, but it also, as I'm speaking to brands who are trying to figure out what to do with their first party data, it offers both opportunity for them to better target and measure what their customers are doing within these networks themselves, but they're still walled gardens at the end of the day. They're not able to extract their first party data out of it in a way that they can run things like kind of analysis. And so one of my predictions is that we're going to see some of these brands pull back and diversify, and where maybe 100% or 90% of their revenue is coming from retailers, they're going to really invest in standing up direct to consumer models, because that's the only way to really generate their own true first party data that they have control over. So, if it's 90% run through retailers and 10% direct, I would predict we're going to see a shift, and it's going to move to 80-20, 70-30 where possible.
I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, I think what we're also going to see is, like, because most people think of retail media networks are, for CPG companies or for electronics, right, and consumer goods. But I think you're going to start seeing non-endemic or different types of industry and advertisers that don't necessarily sell product in store or at that particular store start using them for to help generate awareness and so forth too.
Yeah, I completely agree. We're going to see it expand outside of just traditional retailers in general.
Yep.
And I think it's a huge opportunity for other industries. The one that comes to mind is travel. to lean in and create similar networks of sorts, and even just kind of data sharing, data consortiums. And a good example of this is we're starting to see airlines partner with hotel chains, and so they're using data collaboration in clean rooms, and they're making more informed decisions. And why wouldn't they also launch travel networks and whatnot? So we're going to start seeing it pop up because it's a huge opportunity.
I have one more prediction, and it's a little selfish of me because it's an initiative that I'm working on, and I believe that you guys are participating. Is attention metrics is going to be huge. So I think that in addition to the first party data, targeting of known and unknown audiences, you're going to probably be working with a lot of, if not already, working with a lot of agencies and brands on like, how does attention metrics fit in, and making sure that that ads are being served right in front of human folks that are more attentive to the ads and more receptive to some of the ad units out there.
Let's go beyond click-through rate.
Oh, yes, please. Anyway, well, thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Any last words?
No, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you, and the partnership with IAB.
Yeah, thank you again. So I'm Angelina, everyone. So thank you, Alex, for joining us today. And thank you for watching.